you, Dean. To everyone at the sound of my voice, I thank God for you for being here. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Louisville was like a second home to me. For my pastor, Father Edward Branch, is the first African American ever to be ordained from this diocese. And so I tell you, I would not stand here today, and my vocation would not be what it is if it wasn't for Father Branch. And so he gives his greetings. So how becoming is this festival for me to be in Louisville? Today's sermon will be inspired by the Gospel according to John, chapter 4, his favorite parable, the Samaritan woman. 2 weeks ago, I attended the movie Disney's The Princess and the Frog. It was the first time that Disney had ever created a movie with an African-American princess. We're telling the popular childhood story of The Princess and the Frog. Many of you remember how the story goes. The princess kisses the frog, and he turns into a prince. I won't spoil the movie for you all who have not seen it, but for the purpose of this sermon, I must ruin most of it. The movie takes place in New Orleans, which is just like Louisville, another popular Catholic city. Here, Tiana, the black princess, is no princess at all. She's a beautiful little girl who comes from a blue-collar family with big hopes and dreams. Her mother is a seamstress who is one of the best in town and creates dresses for a rich man's daughter named Charlotte. Tiana is raised with Charlotte and from an early age clearly understands how they differ in wealth and class and acknowledges that to make it in this world, she must work hard for it. Tiana adopts her father's dream by pledging to raise the money to buy her own restaurant since her father died before he could. Determined that his failure would not be hers, Tiana works hard from a child up to her 20s, saving every extra coin she made for working tables to go into business for herself. However, in this story, there is a prince that has everything and does nothing for her. His name is Prince Naveen. Tiana is invited to cater Charlotte's party so that she can make the extra money she needs to finally buy her restaurant. However, it does not happen like that. She is told by the bankers that someone else had already paid for the restaurant, and that if she couldn't match the buyer, she would lose. The restaurant would serve her right anyway. Colored girls just did not need to work that hard. Tiana, her despair, runs upstairs to her friend's room where she is dressed in a beautiful dress by Charlotte and a crown placed on her head to comfort her. Wow. The prince, now turned into a frog, sees her on the patio and speaks. Knowing that if he is kissed by her, he would turn back into a prince and all would end well. So the prince says, "Kiss me." Can you imagine a frog saying, "Kiss me"? However, after the kiss, she turns into a frog. After all, she is not a real princess. And now we have 2 frogs on our hands. The expected ending is that they both become human. She marries the prince, thereby becoming a genuine princess, and they live happily ever after. Right. Which brings us to our sermon title today, When Jesus Speaks. Yeah. Permit me, brothers and sisters, to adapt the allegory that John's Gospel presents, and allow me to make Jesus the frog who is the prince in disguise, and make Tiana the nameless woman at the well. For the Samaritan woman, Jesus may as well have been a frog, and talking to him, like giving the odious kiss. The woman at the well makes her usual routine of fetching water for her household, and out of the blue here's this man who was clearly different and easily recognizable as a Jew. Says to her, "Give me a drink." She didn't scream like Tiana did, I assure you, but her reaction was very close. See, the Samaritans were half-breeds or mixed people. The illegitimately, baptized and intermarried people of their day. When the Syrians had taken over Israel, they forced the Jews out of their land and replaced it with men and women from other nations. Right. However, for the Jews who couldn't leave, they were mixed in with the people that were brought to Samaria and thus became the taboo Samaritans. The Zionists from Jerusalem considered them Jewish half-breeds, kind of like some black people consider products of intermarriage today. They were not Jewish but had a similar religion. They had their own version of the 5 books of the Old Testament and rejected the rest. and their religion had been taught to them by priests who worshipped pagan gods. In short, Jews regarded their religion as a broken form of Judaism that was just unacceptable. In fact, when Jews had to travel, they would go around Samaria so that they couldn't interact with the Samaritans. So, brothers and sisters, Jesus the frog meets Samaritan's princess. The frog wants to kiss the princess with a conversation. However, his kind did not travel to or come anywhere near Samaria. This was a no-no for all Jewish people. So now, my brothers and sisters, do you see the shock? Do you see how taken back our sister at the well was? The Princess Tiana of our day, laden with our dreams and plans and hopes and agendas. Jesus the Prince in frog's clothing wants to kiss us, the self-styled princesses types of our time, and free us for life in his real kingdom. In other words, Christ sought her as he seeks all of us. Jesus enters her life as God. The risen Lord enters ours today. Before this, though, we are oftentimes broken, mixed, clouded, unfocused, and simply average. Many of us have goals and dreams that do not always promote or oppose Christ's consciousness. Many of us, like the Samaritan woman, have our routines that do not always include God. Like our friend at the well, Christ is not on her menu until he puts himself there. The gospel clearly shows us today that before Christ enters our lives, we may not always expect him. We may not willingly accept him, but by and by, if we listen and trust him, we will understand what the Lord is really trying to show us. The frog also gives us a glimpse into how Christ appears. It is just like Saul, the man most Christians of the time may have considered to be somewhat of a monster, had reached his day of conversion. This conversion at the woman's well is like Saul's conversion. He was literally knocked down on the road to Damascus and directly called by God. He thereafter became known as Paul. Like Saul, we follow our general routines of life, and just like that, we are stopped, and the Lord gives us a 180-degree view of our life's direction. John's point today is that our lives must celebrate who Jesus really is. Not only should we receive Christ when he speaks to us through whatever person or medium, but that it is critical that we carry out his mission with our lives. Many of you have been in this situation. I'm sure everyone in this room can relate to the story. How many of you have been just doing your own thing, and God spoke to you through someone you didn't look like, didn't like, and didn't even understand? And today you find yourself doing something so different than before. Just because Jesus spoke. Isn't it ironic, brothers and sisters, how Christ's unprecedented and unpredicted call is so real in our lives today? Yes, sir. For had it not been for Jesus, the prince in a frog body, had it not been for him speaking to us, we would not be in this room today. When Jesus speaks. The princess and the frog raises before us another value that these scriptures preserve for us at the well. Tiana needs the prince so that she may become human again and carry on her dream, and the prince needs her so that he can fulfill his dream. This union is special because for the woman at the well, Christ presents the treatment. He needs her to be born again and preach that he is Lord to her community. She needs his eternal salvation so that for once in her life it have meaning and be whole. For the Samaritan woman, she would still draw water, but now more than natural water. Now her life will be filled with Jesus, making her a royal princess in her own right, and a source of living water. When Jesus speaks, she goes from rags to riches. When Jesus speaks, she goes from ordinary to extraordinary.